morning. Welcome to another edition of Evenings with Steve.
Trial.
A special edition tonight, a 90-minute edition. And I'm Steve Skirka, of course, your host of
Trial.
this program. I'm being reminded that it's Toronto. I'm well aware that I'm in the city of Toronto at the Beth Sholem Synagogue. So I wanted to let you know, first of all, that you heard some nice music in the green room before we started tonight. Those were scores from movies, a variety of different movies. Schindler's List, The Bee Gees, Staying Alive, and Philadelphia, Bruce Springsteen's song. But I have a 22-minute mix, very upbeat, lively, spirited, and wonderful music prepared for you at the end of the program. So grab a juice, a glass of wine or beer, and just enjoy yourself. And fill in the comments if you have any comments about the program or future programs, and just enjoy Stevie Wonder and George Benson. I think you'll really enjoy it. So before I start tonight's special program, I wanted to let you know about the two programs we have planned for the month of April. On April 5th, we're going to be covering the 15th anniversary of the Conrad Black trial. And as many of you know, I covered the trial for CTV. I wrote a book about the case, including the Supreme Court of Canada judgment. And we're going to look introspectively at the case from an insider's point of view. I'm not going to be interviewing anyone, at least for most of the show. I'm going to be doing the talking. So you're going to see me in a very different role, but I think it'll be interesting and entertaining. And then for the last 10 minutes of the show, we're going to interview one of the jurors who I got to know as I wrote the book. And then on April the 19th, we have Barry Average back. And Barry Average, as you know, is Canada's foremost documentary producer. So many films. We had him last year, just a wonderful program. And we're going to be looking at his Oscar Peterson documentary, his recent film that premiered in Toronto. And we're going to show excerpts from the film and talk about it. Oscar Peterson is a Canadian icon. He's probably one of not just Canada's greatest jazz musician, but one of the greatest jazz musicians in ever in history, and also suffered a great deal of racial discrimination as he reached the heights of music, both the United States and in Canada. And the film covers that. So I encourage you to come to that program too. All right. So now I'm going to introduce my wonderful guests. Many of you know them from last year. Ann Hornaday, the brilliant film critic from the Washington Post, and Richard Krause, equally brilliant, renowned Canadian film critic. And I just wanted to say how grateful I am to have both of you again to review the best films nominated for an Oscar that will take place at the Academy Awards ceremony this Sunday. So thank you for being on the program, both of you.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Thank you, Steve. It's great to be back.
All right. So I think it only makes sense that we deal with the fiercest competition of all at the Oscars. And I think you'll agree with me. Forget about the Best Picture. But who's going to win? Is it going to be Billie Eilish, Beyonce, or Van Morrison? That's the question that's burning in my mind. Go ahead. I want to hear. I didn't warn you about this, but who's going to win Best Song?
Best song, I would, my money is on Beyonce. I think King Richard is going to be one of those up and comers here that people aren't expecting to walk home with a crate full of Academy Awards, but I think that's going to be the movie that surprises a lot of people. And if just public opinion means anything, when it was announced that Beyonce was going to be there and potentially performing and picking up an award, Twitter kind of burst into flames in a way that it hasn't for a long time. So there's a lot of excitement out there to see Beyonce there. So I think that might just translate with the Oscar voters as well.
And Anne?
I love that theory. It's a beautiful song. I love the Van Morrison song too. I was actually picking Billie Eilish to win,
right?
But for no reason, that's my spidey sense.
Right.
Because she's so au courant and so hip.
Right.
Okay. Well, there you go.
I love that theory, Richard. I hope you're right.
So I wanted you to know that I watched all 10 of the movies. I can't host a program without watching every movie. And I must tell you, I watched the movie Belfast, and I said, okay, you know, this absorbing memoir, this beautiful acting, the child actor. There it is. That's the best picture, you know, right there. And then I watched West Side Story, this spectacular musical revival. And I went, wow, you know, there's the winner. No, I changed my mind. And, you know, and then I watched Coda, and Coda touched my heart. You know, I haven't seen many movies that have affected me as much as Coda. I said, well, there it is. And then last night I watched King Richard. And forget about Will Smith, you know, his masterpiece performance of acting. But it was as powerful and inspiring a movie as I've ever seen. And by the way, I haven't even mentioned the front runner. That's Power of the Dog. So, you know, I guess, Richard, my question is, that's a nice introduction to my next question, because I'm just a regular guy. You're the experts, both you and Ann. And I just want to know, how do the list of these 10 movies that are nominated for Best Picture stack up against last year or forever?
Well, I think that there's a bit more mix than there was last year, just in terms of there being a little something for everybody. When you look at the nominees, from The Power of the Dog, which is this kind of Western Gothic film, to Belfast, as you mentioned, which is this, for my money, non-political film that's just about a family and a little boy trying to make sense of the world around him, both interpersonally and with cars blowing up on a street, and trying to figure out what's going on. West Side Story, remake of a classic. Licorice Pizza, which has a very special place in my heart this year. I love that movie. And Dune, giant sci-fi epic. Coda, the complete opposite, a tiny, heartwarming film. King Richard, as you mentioned, Don't Look Up, which for me, I don't know that it, for my money, it belongs on this list, but a lot of people love it. Drive My Car, first Japanese movie we've seen on this list in a long time. And Nightmare Alley, which is, again, this beautifully crafted movie that deals with some very dark subjects. So last year you had movies like The Father and Judas and the Black Messiah and Mank and Minari and Promising Young Women. But there was sort of a real downbeat kind of feel to a lot of those films. This year, with a few notable exceptions, the movies made me feel better on the way out of the theater than I did going into the theater, and that, I think, is something that was important to me this year during the pandemic.
And what was your view of the list?
I totally agree. I'm always encouraged when I see that kind of variety, because it tells me that the ecosystem is healthy. You know, we don't want this. We don't want a monoculture. It also felt like the movies are kind of back. I mean, I think last year reflected the weird year that had been, which was muted. And as Richard noted, you know, it was kind of downbeat, and people were tentative, and a lot of stuff didn't open. A lot of stuff was delayed. This crop feels more movie-ish. You know, you do have these sort of big spectacles like Dune and even West Side Story, I would say, like big, bold, you know, movies that you want to see on a big screen, along with the little streamers like the Coda, you know, which was an Apple movie, and it premiered at Sundance, and it's more of an indie. I was also kind of heartened. Both Coda, Belfast, and King Richard all share that heart you were talking about, Steve. These are family films. I mean, these are films that are about something, about an explicit thing, but at the heart, they're really about family, and they're ones you want to share with your family. And that's kind of a genre, a form of filmmaking that I like to see preserved, you know, because I think I worry that they're going to be just making Batman and Spider-Man and big, you know, noisy things, and I like these sort of quieter family films.
Well, and I love that there's a real universal appeal to each of these films that we just mentioned, Coda, King Richard, and Belfast, even though they are very specific in their setting and in the stories that they're telling and in the timeframes in which they're happening. The universal messages of the importance of family and coming together and loyalty and all those things that snake their way through each of those screenplays, I think opens them up to families anywhere in the world. Whether you know about the troubles in Ireland or who Serena Williams is, or if you know what the acronym CODA stands for, it doesn't matter, because those films speak to a larger kind of truth. And I think that is for my money, and I'll throw Licorice Pizza in there as well. Those are my favorites on the list.
Okay. So we're going to start with our first film, and we're going to look at previews of every movie. So don't worry if you haven't seen the movies yet, because you'll have some familiarity when Ann and Richard talk about them. So let's start with West Side Story, please.
Trial. Trial.
Jan, we can't hear the sound.
Yeah.
Trial.
I'm happy to
Trial.
sing the score if that helps.
You know,
Trial.
we prepared, we did everything we could. And of course, that's one of the things about Zoom that we won't miss, will we, Richard? The technical difficulties.
That's right.
It happens.
Be patient.
Trial.
Be patient. It will be looked after.
Well, I'll talk about it a little bit now while we're
Trial.
waiting until we start. I was unsure about this as a remake because the original seemed unassailable to me. People love it. It won a lot of
Trial.
Academy Awards, and it won me over in a very big way, seeing it on the big screen, particularly Rita Moreno, although I enjoyed the whole cast, but I love how they created a character for her,
Trial.
tweaked one of the final songs, and just for my money, she is a noticeable snub on the list
Trial.
of performers here at the Oscars this year.
You said, Richard, in your review that you thought it was one of Spielberg's best, most compelling films in years, which I thought was very, a startling comment.
Trial.
Well,
But-
this is a film by a filmmaker who's wanted to make this for a very long time. And, Spielberg has been nominated for Academy Awards in 6 decades now. I mean, it's a remarkable run for anybody. And he is a connection to old school filmmaking that would then runs through to modern day filmmaking. And he brought both those sensibilities to this movie.
Yeah. And of course, you have Stephen Sondheim's connection to it. He died.
Trial.
Yeah, there we go.
There we go.
Trial.
You.
Trial.
I never seen you before. You're not Puerto Rican.
Is that okay?
Do you want to start World War III?
Trial.
You know, I wake up to everything I know either getting sold or wrecked or being taken over by people that I don't like.
You keep away from him. As long as you're in my house.
I'm a grown-up now, Bernardo. I'm gonna think for myself.
Trial.
Tony, we need you if we're going to war.
Trial.
Who are you? Friend or foe?
If you go with him, no one will ever forgive you. Life matters even more than love.
Trial.
All right. So, Anne, one thing for certain is that when you leave this program, you're going to remember what city hosted this show. It's certainly going to be impressed on you that it was Toronto. So there was the wonderful preview. And you described this movie in your review, and this is the urgent, utterly beautiful revival. And what was it about this film that led you to that description?
Well, as Richard said, it's the original. It's always perilous to remake a great film, but that first film wasn't necessarily perfect. I mean, it's beloved, but I think the beauty of this adaptation from Tony Kushner, who wrote the book, and Spielberg, is that they embraced what we love about that first movie, and then they just tweaked it. I mean, I think Tony Kushner's script is so alert to the resonances with today's cultures, and how much hasn't changed in terms of tribalism and prejudice and making assumptions about people. And they did it in a very fluent and subtle way that we didn't feel preached at. And I thought the performances, Richard mentioned Rita Moreno. I totally agree. I thought that was just a brilliant tweak that they character. But I would also say Mike Faist, who plays Riff, who's the young man we saw in that trailer.
Best thing in the movie, right there.
Blew me away.
Yeah.
Blew me away. And we were kind of talking about who got robbed this year, and I would have loved to have seen him get a nomination for supporting actor, because that performance had it all. I mean, I just thought it was breathtaking. But to Richard's point too about Spielberg just working at the height of his powers. I mean, you're just seeing the filmmaking, the cinematography, that production design, the use of those diaphanous pieces of fabric, the color, the movement, the reflection, the use of water. I mean, it's just a thrilling movie to watch, just visually, and it works on every level for me.
Well, like I said, I had some reservations going in, and then I saw one of the trailers, and there was the shot of an overhead camera, and the jets are coming in to that warehouse space from one side. The sharks are coming in from the other. The shadows kind of come in and meet first. It is just an absolutely stunning shot, and it's the kind of thing that Spielberg just to like, it came in a fever dream, and he said, we have to get this in the film. And it's so striking and it's so beautiful. So visually it works for me. They moved the song Somewhere, which in the original film, the 1961 film, was usually sung by the romantic leads. Here it's sung by Rita Moreno's character. And it was a song of hope, and here it's a song of devastating, of longing and loss. And for me, that was her Academy Award moment right there. I thought, who can watch this and not be melted by it? Absolutely stunning.
Can I ask you this? One of the things that I wondered about is you have a musical and you have all of these tragic components and all of these moments that are really downers, and it's this strange combination, and I'm wondering if you think that worked well in this revival.
The best musicals always do. Cabaret, nothing works out well for anybody at the end of that show. Like, for my money, the best musicals are not just the ones that are all about sunshine and light. They have a human component to them, and tragedy is part of that equation.
Okay. So what do we have? Do we rate this movie as having a chance to win Best Picture? Anne?
Well, right now it's very much neck and neck between Power of the Dog and Coda, and we'll talk about Coda later. But Coda has really, really come up for the very reason that you loved it. It's getting people, and Academy voters vote with their hearts when it comes to Best Picture. But it's also a preferential ballot, and we can get into all that, those machinations. So I do think that the preferential ballot does leave room for a movie to come in, and it could be West Side Story. I mean, I think it has all the contours of a classic Best Picture, So, but I like Richard's idea about King Richard too. I like that a lot.
Good.
Yeah, I don't think it's really got a big shot here. It's a big year. There's lots of great movies here. People like it, but for some reason don't love it. When it came out, it got good reviews. Critics seemed to like it more than audiences did, I think. And I don't know how
audiences didn't see it. That's the problem.
That's
because
the problem.
when it came out, it was released in theaters, and this is really a movie you do want to see on a big screen. And it was right when Omicron hit, and people did wait. They made that calculation. Those adult audiences that Hollywood's dying to get back said, nope, we're going to wait for it to come on streaming. And I just think that was a real shame. It was just bad luck. And then some people have mumbled that the marketing was a little bit off. They didn't connect it with the audience. It's real audience well enough. But anyway, it's just bad luck, really.
Right. So let's look at one of the front runners you just mentioned, The Power of the Dog. Let's watch the trailer for that.
If I was wearing my chaps, I'd stand up like Benedict Cumberbatch, and I could reenact some scenes from it. But
well, we're doing the very best we can technically, and I have to say it's not easy.
No, it's not.
I've been told that we have a minute and a half. So let's just talk about the movie and ask you, Richard, first about what your views of Power of the Dog were. Did you think it was a 4-star film?
I didn't give it 4 out of 5 stars. I gave it 3.5 out of 5 stars on my rating system. And I did that because for me, I think it's a beautifully crafted film. I think that it's a kind of unique reimagination of what an American Western can be. But each of the characters, and I'm talking about the top line cast completely. The characters played by Benedict Cumberbatch, Jesse Plemons, Cody Smith, and Kirsten Dunst. For me, were all enigmas. And I just found myself at the end of that movie feeling like I was not really caring terribly about any of them. And while I just spent 2.5 hours, getting a window into their lives, I wasn't drawn into the story.
Yeah, and I wasn't sure what the story was. I don't know if.
Well, I was a little confused by the power of the dog quote at the end of the movie and how it was supposed to relate to the rest of the film. And a friend of mine is in theology school right now, so I emailed him, and I don't know if he ever got back to me, but I was like, please explain what this could possibly mean, because I didn't get it.
Yeah, and I thought Benedict Cumberbatch, which is just a brilliant actor, one of my favorites. It was just something about his character. He just seemed so demonic that I couldn't connect with him as an actor. And what did you think of The Power of the Dog?
Well, I think I was probably a little bit more emotionally engaged in it than you guys were, because I realized, sort of when the penny drops, you realize it looks like a Western, but it's really a psychological thriller.
Yep.
And it's almost like don't think about John Ford. Think about Hitchcock and Patricia Highsmith, because it's that kind of twisty, crafty, semi-sadistic mind game kind of a thing. And once I grokked that, then I thought, oh, okay, here's what's going on. And then, it has such a bizarre ending. I don't want to give anything away, but it's just, which I thought was pretty well handled, and kind of, it did keep me in suspense. I wasn't exactly sure what was going on. And then finally the thing happens, and it's all kind of tied up. So I definitely think it works on an intellectual level more than an emotional level. And again, coming into the Best Picture, relating that to the Best Picture race, I think that's why I predict that Jane Campion will still win Best Director, but I do think Coda is going to take Best Picture, because I think, again, Academy members, they might respect the craft and they might see the craft and give it a hat tip, but that Best Picture vote is going to go to the one that made them feel something.
I agree. I think, in my circles, when I've talked about this movie, film critics like it a lot more than people who do not write about films for a living. Yeah.
Yes.
And so The Power of the Dog is a movie that more than any movie that I can think of over the last couple of years, people have stopped me, strangers stopped me on the street and say, can you tell me what that movie was about? Can you explain that movie to me? Why did people like it?
Well, with me, and there's another one in this list that did that for me, and it's not this one. This one, I would get people stopping me saying, did you see that movie?
Right.
And they'd say, that was, we kind of can't stop talking about it. I mean, I think people were intrigued by it. I don't think they rejected it.
Okay, here we go. Let's go. You can't, no sound? Okay, so let's leave that one. We'll go to the next one, but we'll wait, please. Okay, so I have a question for you. You know, as you can see, I earn my pay for this program, both of you. You know, I work very hard with these technical issues, but you know, they're not a problem. I can do it. So let me ask you this, because I saw one of the things that was interesting for me was just the number of great performances of stars. Mm-hmm. You know, we talked about Will Smith already, but I saw the movie Spencer, and I was just blown away by the actress who played Lady Diana in that
Kristen
movie.
Stewart. Yeah,
Kristen Stewart. I just saw so many wonderful performances. So who would you say were the standout actors and actresses this year? And who do you think the likely winner of each category will be? And I'll go to you first on this.
Well, I mean, you're right about the performances. They were, when you see the like, there aren't that many that I would even have an issue with. You know, Will Smith, Denzel Washington, and Tragedy of Macbeth. I would have added even Frances McDormand in that movie. I thought they were both just titanic.
Right.
Yeah.
I am a huge Penelope Cruz. I mean, I'm really rooting for Penelope Cruz in Parallel Mothers, a movie that did not get the respect it deserved. It wasn't even submitted by its country, you know, for Best International Film, which is a shame. I love that film. I love her in it. I thought Nicole Kidman was quite brilliant in being the Ricardos, a movie that I wasn't sure we needed, but it was such a doubling performance. She was playing Lucille Ball, and then she was playing Lucille Ball playing Lucy. Yeah. And her performance as Lucy was really good. I mean, she nailed those gags. She nailed some of the physical comedy and the expressions. I was really impressed with her. I could just go on and on and on, but it was a very strong year for performances.
Well, who would have imagined right now, as we sit here in 2022, thinking back 10 or 12 years, and looking at the Twilight movies and thinking that Kristen Stewart and Robert Pattinson would go on from those movies, which were giant hits, but you know, critics were not fans, and they could have gone the way of so many other young adult stars that star in big franchise movies like that and sort of, you know, disappear after a little while. But instead, both of them went from strength to strength to strength. Kristen Stewart's Personal Shopper, for instance, is such an interesting movie that you might not necessarily have thought she would make after the success of Twilight. Spencer is another one. Brilliant performance from her in that. Robert Pattinson working with Robert Eggers in The Lighthouse, and Christopher Nolan in Tenet, and now as Batman. They step crisscrossing back and forth kind of effortlessly between these sort of strange indie movies into big blockbusters. And, you know, I think both of them handed in great performances this year. Kristen Stewart's nominated for Spencer. I agree about Nicole Kidman. The thing I liked about Being the Ricardos was that it was a film that focused on a week. Takes place in 7 days. You're not going to be able to tell the story of Lucille Ball really and do it, and Desi Arnaz, and do it justice if you take on their entire careers. There were flashbacks, there were little bits of context that we got, but I liked that movie was fairly concise and focused in its view and what it took on its topics. And I think for me, that's really went a long way to help make that movie work. For other performances, I'm just having a quick look here. I think, Ciarán Hinds in Belfast. I walked out of Belfast and I said, if Ciarán Hinds, who plays the grandfather in Belfast, doesn't get nominated, I will boycott the Academy Awards. And luckily, I'm here because he got nominated.
Okay, that's wonderful.
Wonderful. And Judi Dench both. Oh, it was delicious. Just so delicious. Great. You're right. Yeah. They made that movie.
Yeah, the end of the movie, which I don't want to ruin it, but is Judi Dench. That scene is so powerful. So can you just give me this is God testing me here, Dan. I'm in a synagogue,
You're powering through it, Steve.
Powering through it.
It's a thing of
Use
beauty.
the power of the dog. Use the power of the dog.
I think it was karma because I did not like that movie. So I don't
Your
mind.
karma ran over your dog, Mike.
That's
I don't
right.
mind that they ran over the. And I kept wondering, where's Richard? What does this title have to do with the movie? You know, you shouldn't have
Well,
to.
it is referenced near the end. Yeah, it is referenced near the end. It's a biblical passage.
Yeah.
And as I said, I emailed a friend of mine to explain it to me so I could connect those dots. And I don't remember what he said, if anything, if he ever got back to me.
I just read it the other night because I'm an Episcopalian, so I'm in Lent right now, and it did come up in one of my readings. I think it's just about evil. You know, it's about that malign force in all of us.
Yep.
That is either submerged or comes out, and you know.
Okay, so we're going to try the next film, and if we don't get it, we're going to go right into the discussion. Okay.
Okay.
So and it was a very unique film among us, no question about it. It's Nightmare Alley. All right. So let's see, please, if we can see the preview.
Trailer starts now. We'll ask you simple questions. You will answer in short sentences only what you believe to be absolute truth. Absolute truth. I can do that. Now, brief as you can. What is your name? Stanton Carlisle. Are you a true medium? Yes, I am. Mr. Carlisle. Doctor, how about that? Please lay down. Can you read minds? Yes, I can. Under the right circumstances. Keep your answers brief. What do I want? To be found out, same as everybody else. Are you in contact with the beyond? Well, we've had our share of snake charmers in the past. We deal with them. You fool people, Stan. They fool themselves. I've given you a fortune. It's time that you deliver it.
When does it end? I want to know.
If you displease the right people, the world closes in on you very, very fast.
So there's Nightmare Alley, and it's a movie that starts with a burning corpse, and it's violent, but I found it to be compelling, I must say. So, Anne, what did you think about Nightmare Alley?
Well, I thought it was compelling. Look, it's Guillermo del Toro is sort of incapable of making a non-compelling movie.
Yes.
It's just visually, he's such a stylist. I will admit this one lost me. I just thought it fell apart in the third act. It got very talky, very kind of here's what's happening and why. And it just lost me. I thought Cate Blanchett, her performance was so arch and so mannered, and so everything had quotes around it. And she's playing that femme fatale from film noir, just ratcheted it up to 11. And that took me out. Actually, I thought Bradley Cooper was really good. It was a very strong performance from him. But I just don't think the movie ever decided what it was and why it was, and whether it wanted to be super, super stylized or naturalistic, or I don't know. I just, at the end of it, I just kind of shrugged. It really didn't work for me.
Okay.
I liked it more than Anne. I mean, it feels like two different movies, which it kind of is. There's a long setup, and then it feels like there could be an intermission, and then you come back, and then you see almost a different movie with the same characters, just at very different times of their lives. And I like the style of it. I love that for film geeks like myself, you know, in the final 10 minutes, if your eyes are peeled, you'll start seeing characters from Todd Browning's movie Freaks pop up here and there, and just that kind of, you know, that kind of stuff appeals to me a little bit because I've spent my life watching those movies. But what I liked about Nightmare Alley overall, though, was that in this case, Guillermo del Toro has kind of gotten away from the characters that he had used before to shock people, like the Pale Man in Pan's Labyrinth, when he reveals the eyeballs on his hands, which I remember being in a theater for when no one had seen this at TIFF one year, at the Toronto International Film Festival one year, and when this character got up and raised his hands like that, the entire audience gasped. It was just one of those amazing moments, right? So, but he's walked away from that. And in this film, the real terror here, the worst thing is ambition. You know, the creature, the super, you know, the force here is ambition that makes everything fall apart. And I thought it was something interesting for him to explore. I wish it had been tighter. I wish it hadn't telegraphed itself as much. I kind of felt like I knew what was coming because there are little clues all the way through the movie. And I thought, well, in the beginning, I thought, well, that can't be giving away this much, not so early. And yet there you have it. I thought that they kind of telegraphed a little bit too much, but his ability to create this, I don't know, this shroud of menace is almost unlike anybody else working today.
You know, I was asked a question. That's a really interesting question from a member of our audience. I'll paraphrase. And the question really is, when you're, as film critics, when you go to see a movie and you really, really don't like it, do you just avoid doing the review, or will you give it a scathing review? You know, and an interesting question. So I'll ask both of you.
Yeah.
Oh,
Anne
no.
seems like she's muted.
We can't mute Anne. Her words are too precious.
There, am I here?
There you are.
Yes,
there you're
yes,
back.
There you are. Yes.
So the question was, I'm sorry.
So if you see a terrible movie,
Yeah.
let's say you went in to see a movie like House of Gucci, and you just, you know, a lot of people hated that movie. Would you still write the review about it, a scathing review, or would you say,
yes, that's what they pay me. I get paid to see the bad ones. I see, you know, like that's on the t-shirt. I see the bad ones, so you don't have to.
That's my slogan. That's on my website. That is on my slogan.
There you go. Exactly. No, exactly. You have to sit there. You got to sit there and take it.
Yeah.
But weirdly, Steve, a lot of people loved House of Gucci.
Okay.
That was the one that shot, you know, you got your dinner party movies, you know, when you go out and you see friends. That was the one around a holiday season everybody seemed to have gone to. And I was so shocked. But there was something about it that just drew people. I guess it was Gaga or the subject matter, but anyway.
I liked House of Gucci because of its just operatic scale, but there have been loads of movies that I hate that I will absolutely feel no compunction about writing about. There's a movie called They Serve Beer in Hell. This is a long time ago, and it was just an absolutely off-putting movie in every way. And it was based on a book that was a bestseller, a very famous book at the time. And on a television show that I was working on at the time, reviewing movies, I gave it minus 1,000 times infinity or something like that, or a star rating.
Okay, so there we go. There's the answer. So the next movie we'll look at is very interesting because you both have very different perspectives. You had very different reviews about it. And it's Licorice Pizza. So let's watch the trailer of Licorice Pizza. I hope. And if we don't, we'll just talk about it. So I'll give it about 20 seconds and then we'll just venture into discussion.
It's a god-awful small affair to the girl with the mousy hair.
I met the girl I'm gonna marry one day.
But her mommy is yelling no, and her daddy has told her to go.
Listen, young lady.
But her friend is nowhere to be seen.
So how'd you become such a hotshot actor?
She walks through her
I'm a showman. That's what I'm meant to do.
To the seat with the clearest view. And she's hooked to the silver.
I met the girl I'm gonna marry one day.
But her mommy is yelling no, and her daddy has told her to go.
Listen, young lady.
but her friend is nowhere to be seen.
So how'd you become such a hotshot actor?
I'm a showman. That's what I'm meant to do.
To the seats with the clearest view. Then she's hooked to the silver screen.
Do you know who I am?
Yeah.
Do you know who my girlfriend is?
Barbara Streisand?
Barbara Streisand.
Sand.
Sand, yeah, like sands, like the ocean, like
Barbara Streisand?
No, like Streisand.
Sand.
But the film is a satin ball.
This is fate that brought us together.
But she's lived it 10 times or more.
Our roads took us here.
She could spit in the eyes of fools.
You're not my director.
They ask her to focus.
Do you really want to see my boobs?
Can I touch them?
See you tomorrow. I think it's weird I hang out with Gary and his friends all the time. I think it's weird that I hang out with Gary and his 15-year-old friends all the time.
I'm not gonna forget you. Just like you're not gonna forget me. Gross.
Roll sound. Roll camera A. Roll camera B. Mark it.
Action.
Come in that thing.
Fun?
All right, so before I turn to my distinguished guests, I'm going to venture a guess that this is the first movie in the history of the Academy Awards nominated for Best Picture that has a Friday Sabbath dinner scene in it. So I just wanted, since we're in a synagogue, I wanted to mention it has this wonderful scene, and I don't want to spoil it, but I thought that was one of the best scenes in the movie. So Richard, you like this movie, Licorice Pizza, right?
I did like this movie. I have a feeling I'm in the minority here, though, on this side of the screen as we work through this.
Well, I do my homework.
Yeah, I know. I did like this movie. I like Paul Thomas Anderson, even when he is at his most oblique. I mean, movies like The Master and Phantom Thread can be seen as kind of obtuse and hard to penetrate, but they really have rich rewards if you spend the time with them. Licorice Pizza is a different movie. You know, Licorice Pizza is a film about a platonic friendship that blossoms into something else over the course of time between a 15-year-old boy played by Philip Seymour Hoffman's son Connor, who looks like the splitting image of him, and Alana Hayim, who plays, when we first meet her, she's probably 23 or 24 years old. And they flirt, they hang out, he probably wants something more to happen. She doesn't at first, and their relationship changes over time. But what I kind of liked about this movie is that it is kind of directionless in a lot of ways, but it felt to me like it's sort of like flipping through a diary. You know, some of the pages are really intense and the writing's really small and there's a lot going on. And then other times, not so much. You know, other times things happen that are glossed over or that aren't given that aren't life shattering. But I did like that these two characters and these two, which I thought were really great performances from them, really drew me in. And Tom Waits, who plays kind of a John Ford style film director, makes what may be the greatest entrance in a movie this year. He's in a bar. Sean Penn's character says to him, hey, John, whatever his name is in the movie, John, come over here. And through this cloud of cigar smoke, Tom Waits just emerges, and it's a fantastic movie star entrance. So I like the cinema, the glory of that entrance.
Before I just turn in, one of the strengths of the movie that I read about is the screenplay. And in fact, it's nominated and could win for best screenplay. Was that part of what attracted you to the film?
Yeah, I like that. Again, it was made by a filmmaker who was unafraid to present, what is essentially a fairly plotless story that unfolds over 2.5 hours, but managed to keep me engaged. And I've seen it more than once, and liked it even more the second time.
And the floor is yours.
Totally different. Yeah, I'm a huge Paul Thomas Anderson fan as well. So I was very much leaning forward on this one, but I just thought it was so digressive and so meandering. And I love that analogy with the diary. And I wish I'd thought of it, but I didn't. And it didn't hit me that way. To me, it hit me. And it's very inside baseball. I mean, again, like for sort of like your Todd Browning comment, there are so many references to other actors. Mm-hmm. Sean Penn is playing William Holden, and there's a whole another Lucille Ball homage. And, I just think he's going back to the San Fernando Valley of his youth. It's his Madeleine, it's his Proustian memory. And I get it. And I think I understand his affection for it, but there's this fine line, between sort of communicating that love to an audience and then just sort of indulging in it without really reaching out to an audience. And I just see, and this is the one, Richard, that I'm hearing from civilians saying, what the hell was that about? Like, I don't think audiences are getting those rewards from it. And I'm shocked a little bit that it was nominated for screenplay, just because it is so baggy and unformed. And that, there are these set pieces that go absolutely nowhere, don't advance the story, and I guess I'm being a little bit too literal minded in terms of wanting that. Usually I'm like, go nuts, who needs a 3-act structure? But I needed it to be just a little bit more tight and a little bit.
I would have sat there for another hour and just and watch to see what and just to soak in the atmosphere.
It's a hangout. It's a
hangout movie, absolutely. And it's one of those movies that for me, I liked hanging out with them, and I'm interested in the time period. And I love that John C. Reilly is in it for about a tenth of a second. It has one line as Herman Munster at a convention when he's signing autographs, and just all those little Easter eggs for me kind of added up to a very enjoyable time.
Yeah.
So the next movie we look at, you both had great reviews about this. So it's King Richard. So let's look at the trailer for this film.
Said there was trouble in the house.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you all need to look around.
It's a little wet for practice, don't you think? Don't the girls have schoolwork to do?
They do their homework. Tundi's first in her class. Lynn and Isha are too.
Now, I don't even mind you saying we hard on these kids. You know why? Because we are. That's our job, to keep them off these streets. You want to check on the kids? Let's check on the kids. We got future doctors and lawyers, plus a couple tennis stars in this house.
The chances of achieving the kind of success that you're talking about is just very, very unlikely.
Okay, you're making a mistake, but I'm going to let you make it. Watch me hit a few balls. All right. So tell me your names again.
I'm Venus. I'm Serena.
So what'd you think? I wrote me a 78-page plan for their whole career before they was even born.
Yeah, baby, yeah!
These girls so great, how come I've never heard of them? They're from Compton.
It's okay. They're just not used to seeing good-looking peoples like us.
She's nervous. Make a step up.
Maybe she ought to take a few more steps up. Just get someplace safe.
I think you might just have the next Michael Jordan.
Oh, no, brother man. I got me the next, too. What's the next step you got to take? You're not going to just be representing you. You're going to be representing every little black girl on earth.
I'm not going to let you down.
How could you? This world ain't never had no respect for Richard Williams, but they're going to respect y'all. You walk out there with your head up. You are a champion, and the whole world knows. The most dangerous creature on this whole earth. It's a woman who know how to think.
Yes, Daddy.
Ain't nothing she can't do. want to show them how dangerous you are? Venus and Serena gonna shake up this world. Venus Williams, who is your best friend?
Hey, Daddy.
Serena Williams, who is your best friend?
Venus. Then you. Then you. After Venus.
So, Anne, I'm going to turn to you first on this movie. You know, one of the things that I found interesting is I thought, despite the title, you know, because the title should illuminate what it's about, that it would be about Venus and Serena Williams. But I realized very quickly that no, it was about their dad and the story of the father. And they really became incidental to his story. That's the way I looked at it as a viewer of this film. What was your view of that?
That's true. And it's also, I'm a sucker for these. Oops, sorry for the dog. Sorry for the dog.
It makes it so real. Though. I love
we have our own technical.
I love the dog. I love it. I love it.
It's about, it's capturing, you know, it's like what Richard was saying about the Ricardos, you know, the genius of limiting the story to that week. In this case, the genius is telling, we know how the story ends, right? So it's telling us the story, and it's sort of like All the President's Men that way, you know, it ends right on the verge. And there's just something, I'm a sucker for that structural conceit. And I think they do it really well. And to your point, yes, it is about this man. And writ large, it's about African-American parents everywhere who have to be fierce advocates for their children, you know, because of the structural challenges that they face, whether it's in schools or communities or, you know, wherever they go. You know, I live in Baltimore. I'm joining you here from my home in Baltimore, where my friends and neighbors experience this firsthand about just needing to be on it all the time. They just don't have the luxury of knowing that things are going to work out okay. And that's what it meant to me. So again, it's a very specific story that illuminates such a universal and important thing about parenting, and great performances. I thought it was a little too late. I will say it's a little too long.
It's not much too long. Yeah.
Right.
But it tells that story beautifully, and yeah.
You wrote that it reminds us of what a great actor Will Smith is. You know, there's
absolutely
he isn't, but
well, you needed someone like Will Smith, I think, in this role, because you have Richard Williams, who in real life, as he does in the movie, makes some kind of odd decisions in terms of the future of his children. And a lot of them seem kind of counterintuitive, and he's an iconoclast in that he stands, you know, he's an island of one, and what he says goes. He is King Richard on that island. And you needed an actor like Will Smith to be able to bring you in and keep you on side, even when Richard Williams is doing some things that are frankly kind of odd, but you want to believe it. We know how the story ends, so I guess that's part of it too. But we really want to like him, and we need to like him. And Will Smith is, you know, 99.9% charisma, and then there's all sorts of other stuff that goes on in there, the talent and everything else that goes along with him. But he is a very charismatic actor, no matter what kind of role he's taking on. And this one, I just felt like he wore the clothes. You know, he came to play this character in a way that we haven't really seen him be on screen before. But he's got that light. You know, that thing that makes you want to watch him and care about the movie. And in a movie called King Richard, if you don't care about the Richard character, you've lost the battle. And he's the one that keeps us on track.
Good question before we go on to our next film. Does this movie have a chance to win Best Picture, Anne?
Again, I think it could be that spoiler in between Power of the Dog and Coda. I mean, I guess, caveat, I don't live in LA. I don't know I don't have we really don't know how Academy voters, voting ended today's Wednesday. Voting ended yesterday.
Yeah.
When I was in LA a couple of weeks ago at another awards event, the AFI Awards, and sometimes you can kind of pick up little signals and whispers. If anything, the title I heard mostly there was Coda.
Okay.
So but we were honoring King Richard along with, I mean, it does have a lot of affection. I do think Will Smith's going for sure.
Richard?
I think Will Smith has this one in terms of best actor, but I agree with Anne. This is a toss of the coin between The Power of the Dog that hit people in the head and Coda, which hit them in the heart. And I think it will be, just up to how you're feeling that day you're filling out the ballot, because both movies, they each offer up something different. But they both offer up what they offer up in a skillful way. And so whichever one wins, I think people will be kind of, I think the naysayers, if Coda wins, will be like, oh, it's an easy choice. It's just so easy. It's lovable and it's heartwarming and we're cynical and we don't need that. That's not what great cinema is about. But I disagree. I think great cinema is about telling great stories, and Coda has a great story.
Okay, so let's look at Dune now, our next trailer. And again, we'll just give it 30 seconds, Richard, and if not, I'll just turn to you first on this film.
Okay.
So just another 10, and then we'll just move to that. We'll stop if the trailer starts.
You often dream things that happen just as you dreamed them.
Yes.
The test is simple. Remove your hand from the box, and you die.
What's in the box?
Pain. You inherit too much power. You have proven you can rule yourself. Now you must learn to rule others. Something none of your ancestors learned.
My father rules an entire planet.
He's losing it.
He's getting a richer one.
He'll lose that one too. Arrakis is a death trap.
Kill him. This is an extermination. They're picking my family off one by one. That's my black demons.
An animal caught in a trap will gnaw off its own leg to escape. What will you do?
I know you.
One day, a legend will be born. All of civilization depends on it.
The future. I can see it. I must not fear. Fear is the mind killer. Hello, Duke. Where the fear is gone, only I will remain. Go, go, go!
So I think we can both agree, all of us can agree, that this is a movie you need to see in a movie theater to appreciate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And Zendaya is in the trailer almost as much as she's in the movie, which I thought was a bit of a cheat when I saw the film. I'm not a huge fan of big, loud science fiction movies, and I wasn't really looking forward to seeing Dune. I've tried to read the book. The book kind of felt to me like a crossword puzzle. It was a difficult thing for me to find my way through.
Yes.
Lynch certainly had trouble in the 1980s and in 1984 trying to get this on screen, that story in a way that made sense to people. As several other filmmakers have tried since. But Denis Villeneuve, the great French-Canadian filmmaker, he's been drawing, I saw this the other day, he's been drawing storyboards for this since he was 13 years old. This is a movie that he's had in his head for a very long time. And it feels like it. He knew how to tell this story, incredibly complicated story that he walks you through a little bit at a time. And it doesn't make the mistake that those mid-period Star Wars movies made, which were all about treaties and pacts and, you know, other things that were kind of hard to wrap your head around. This movie is about those things too, but there's more to it than that. And he manages to explain it, do so in an epic fashion. My only big trouble with this movie is when I saw it, maybe probably Anne, you saw it around I saw it in September, just before the Toronto International Film Festival, and we didn't know whether it was going to be a part 2 or not. And I sat there for 2.5 hours, and when it ended, I thought, it just stops. It's like they ran out of film. There was no more. And I was kind of put off by that because I thought, I don't know if I'll ever see the rest of this story. And do I need to sit here for 2.5 hours knowing that I may never see the last half? Okay.
And what did you think of this movie?
I agree about that last half thing. I mean, I was not into the, I mean, this is one that I really respect. I understand the degree of difficulty. I think it's beautifully done technically. It absolutely left me cold. I just didn't care about anything about it.
Yes.
One problem, I think, is you do see the debt that Star Wars owes to Dune, to the original Frank Herbert.
Mm-hmm.
And so, not tragically, but unfortunately, this brilliant, it's a brilliantly executed film, but it's almost decades too late because it's kind of, outpaced the Star Wars outpaced the reference material. I do look forward to seeing the second part though, because to your point, like when Zendaya shows up, things start to get really interesting. And I do think that part 2 promises to be a much more just involving and interesting movie. And it also showed me what a charismatic actor Timothée Chalamet is. I mean, he really held the screen for this in a way that I think he often doesn't get credit for. He was also in the Wes Anderson movie this past year, and he's got it. He's got that thing that you were talking about earlier with Will Smith. I mean, the eye goes to him. You'll follow him anywhere. He's a very compelling actor. So he kept me tracking, but I have to say it did not. This one did not really do much.
Yeah, and I felt.
Do you remember the Taylor Kitsch movie that was supposed to make him a superstar, based on the not William Burroughs, the guy that wrote Tarzan?
Burroughs, Edgar Burroughs.
Yeah, Edgar Rice Burroughs. And so there was a giant remake of a film starring Taylor Kitsch. And I've said exactly the same thing that you said. It's decades too late because it was so influential in its time that everybody borrowed from it. And by the time they made the movie, we're like, we've seen it all before, 100 times before.
It's so sad.
Yeah. Okay. So we're going to look now at a foreign film that made the top 10 list, Drive My Car. Let's look at the trailer to that film.
僕たちは確かに僕が一番恐れていたのは音を失うことだった。
今回は私たちの決まりでドライバーを用意します。
というと、
彼女です。小谷美咲です。
僕はまだドライバーを君に頼むことに同意してない。
私が若い女だからですか？1ヶ月半の稽古と2週間の本番です。
ずるい人だ。そこまで。 失礼。君はどうして広島に？
実家の裏が山なんです。大雨で地滑りが起きて、母はその事故で亡くなったんです。
お父さんって素敵じゃないですか。君はこう考えてる。僕たちは同じ悲しみを共有してる。同じ女を愛したから。僕の人生と愛はどうしたら
生きていくほかないの。
私の方がおじさんよりずっと北欧かもしれない。それでも私はやけなんか起こさない。だから今、毎日、とても楽しいです。
So, Anne, I'm going to turn to you first. Drive My Car, this Japanese film entry, Best Picture. What were your thoughts about?
Okay, this is the one I'm the big outlier on because, as you saw with all those superb, exquisite masterpieces, I disagree. I disagree. No pun intended, but my mileage varied on Drive My Car. To me, this has all the trappings of a really pretentious, affected critic's darling that I think it, it's 3 hours long. It's very languid. It's very kind of daringly structured.
They do Uncle Vanya at one.
They do Uncle Vanya within the body of the film, and you're watching and you're trying to glean the meaning of this and what's going to happen, and then in the very no spoiler, in the final few moments, these two characters just say everything that's been on their minds for the last 3 hours of your only life, and I just thought that was a giant cheat. I thought it was really, really indulgent, and there's not much I can say that's complimentary about it. I'm sorry.
This one, I think that if I had watched this movie at home, I might not have made it through. It might have been a different story for me. I saw this one in a theater, and I went in knowing that I was going to be there for 2.5 days watching it, and I was going to be there for a very long time. And I mentally steeled myself for that. And I got into the rhythm of it. And you're absolutely correct, though, about all that stuff. About it. It seems like it is like the Pictionary version of an art film made for and by film critics. And I absolutely get that. But I kind of like the languid rhythm of it. And I liked that it's this kind of weird, introspective, odd couple movie that kept me involved, and I wanted to know more. And by the time we get to the end, and you do get a bit more information with the characters, I was like, finally, I wanted that by the time we got to the end of it. So Drive My Car, I think, is probably the very definition of a film that's not going to be for everybody, given its length and its leisurely nature. But if you're a car person, that red Saab 900 is pretty beautiful. It's a good looking car.
It is a nice looking car. What did you think, Steve? You saw it.
I did not like this movie at all, and I am with you. In Hebrew, we have an expression, mea chuz, and it means 100%. So I could have given that review. But you see, the difference is that I can turn it off. You actually have to see it through to the end. Now, it didn't hit me at all. So the next movie, though, is interesting that we're going to look at. Don't Look Up, because it had elements of comedy, satire, but it was overlaid with a serious message. And I find this one more complicated. And I'm really anxious to hear what both of you say about Don't Look Up. So let's watch the trailer to this.
This is not real. This is not real. This isn't happening. This isn't really happening.
I hear there's something you don't like the looks of.
We discovered a very large comet.
Oh, good for you. It's headed directly towards Earth.
This comet is what we call a planet killer.
At this exact moment, I say we sit tight and assess.
Sit tight and assess?
Sit tight.
And then assess. The sit tight part comes first, and you got to digest it. That's the assessment period.
This is the worst news in the history of humanity. He just blew us off.
What are we going to do? We have to release the information.
So we just leak it.
Our guests today have made a pretty big discovery in space.
How big is this thing, though? I can't destroy my ex-wife's house. Is that possible?
There's a 100% chance that we're all going to die.
Hey.
Well, the handsome astronomer can come back anytime, but the yelling lady, not so
much. We're going to get the news out there one way or another.
It's real and it's coming. Jesus Christ, you could have just called me.
This comet contains $30 trillion worth of material.
What do trillions of dollars matter if we're all going to die? Oh, no, what if we're rich? That would be terrible.
You guys discovered a comet? I have a tattoo of a shooting star on my back.
Oh, that's terrific. Could be a complete disaster.
This is already a disaster.
That girl from Live TV said we're all gonna die.
No.
You'll never take me alive! It's wave! You see it?
I can't. My head is in a bag.
I did have the FBI put that bag over your head. They don't do that. The CIA does, but I made them do it.
You know, I had a feeling.
It's a good feeling because that is what I did, and it was very funny and cool.
Okay. So, Richard, I'm going to come to you first on Don't Look Up. Go ahead, please.
Okay, so I've just looked up my review here. I gave Don't Look Up 3.5 stars out of 5 because I think I enjoyed, thinking back on it now, I think I enjoyed what it was trying to do more than I actually enjoyed the movie. I felt a little bit, and as I think back on the experience of watching this, like I was being hit with a sledgehammer in the face in absolutely every scene. Social commentary and social satire are important and they are great, but I think that social satire is often best laid on in a little thinner layer than we get here. This felt to me like Twitter outrage come to life. Like if I want to see this kind of thing, I don't have to go to the movie theater or turn on Netflix and watch Don't Look Up on Netflix. I can just go to my Twitter feed and see exactly the same kind of outrage and tumult there. And I wanted something a little deeper and a little bit more interesting from this movie. I agree with the points that it was making. I just don't really agree with how it made them.
Anne?
Well, this is one of those movies, every once in a while, as a critic, I get to sort of just watch a movie. And this was one that we watched. My husband and I watched it. I think it was even on a Saturday night. It was on for Netflix films, they'll put it in your queue, so yes. So we sort of watched it the way it was meant to be presented on, and we laughed all the way through. And it is uneven. It is another one that's too long. I hated the Mark Rylance character. I didn't think any of those scenes worked. I didn't know what Meryl Streep was really doing. I'm not sure what Jonah Hill would, but somehow we chuckled all the way through it. And I had forgotten that Timothée Chalamet is in this one, and his character really touched me. And I don't want no spoilers. There's a scene toward the end of this movie involving him and some other people around a table that made me cry because it was so genuine and it was so deeply felt. And I think Richard's right. It's strident, it's over the top, everything's at 11, it's all billboarded. But then there are these sort of moments that catch you that I thought, it's almost like Adam McKay, the filmmaker, was committing sincerity, in the midst of all this satire. And I found that really endearing. Plus, which it was intended to be a climate change satire, but in the interim, it became a COVID satire in terms of people's behavior and denialism. And I just thought it really captured that in a clever way, if uneven and flawed. I'm actually kind of shocked that it made the cut for Best Picture.
Oh, me too. That to me, I complain every year that they were allowed to nominate 10 films, and often they nominate 8 or something. And I think just, let's use all 10 slots. This year they use all 10, and I'm like, what are some of those movies doing on this list? Yeah.
And it's not, but we gave it an award at AFI. I'm on the jury, so I was a little like, it certainly wasn't on my ballot, but it's getting a lot more. It's getting more credibility and than I would have ever expected.
Do you think, and that may be in part because of the name actors? I mean, these are some of the best actors in the world in this movie.
That very well could be. By the way, Leo DiCaprio's performance was really good. I thought he was very funny, and Cate Blanchett was very funny too. All over the top, again, all dialed at 11. But if that's I guess it depends on your mood.
Okay.
But if you got a big bowl of popcorn and some lemonade, it's a fun night.
We're now going to go to the movie which I think is going to win Best Picture, and as I said, it touched my heart. That's Coda. So let's look at the trailer for Coda.
There are plenty of pretty voices with nothing to say. Do you have something to say?
Sometimes I get a good feeling, yeah. I get a feeling that I never had before.
You're the girl with the deaf family?
Yeah. I just want to tell you right now.
And you sing. Interesting.
Something's got a hold on me here.
What are you doing next year?
Working with my family. Let me tell you now, I've got a feeling. I feel so strange. Everything about me seems to have changed.
I've been coaching for Berkeley College of Music. I can help you get a scholarship.
I won't let go. I said,
I want to do this. There are plenty of pretty voices with nothing to say. Do you have something to say?
You will be required to have a hearing individual on board at all times.
I can't stay with you for the rest of my life. I've never done anything without my family before. All that I need to get by.
So, Ann, I'll turn to you first on Coda. What was your impression of the movie?
Oh, I fell for this like a ton of bricks, and it's the anti-Drive My Car, right? It's the anti-critics, darling, because it's so formulaic. You can see the cliches coming down Main Street, and it's so authentically executed by the director Sean Hayter and this amazing cast that she assembled. Most of them unknowns, although that is Marlee Matlin, who is fantastic, is the mom in this. It premiered at Sundance a little over a year ago, and which was online. And I remember sitting down in the living room, and I was laughing and crying and sniffling and snorting and having all those feelings. And it was that one time. It's the kind of movie you really do want to watch with other people, because it's just such such a breathtaking experience emotionally. And that scene, that performance scene where it goes to silent and you kind of see it unfold from her parents' point of view, it just gets me every time. I mean, it's a beautiful film.
Yeah, I cried in that scene. Yeah, Richard, what did you think of that, Bill?
Yeah, there's a couple of things this movie does so well. Like Sound of Metal from last year, that really gave you a sense of what it was like to be losing your hearing as the drummer in the heavy metal bands begins to lose his hearing. That film was kind of uncompromising in the way that it refused to provide subtitles and things like that. It wanted you to feel it. And this movie has that to a lesser extent, but it uses it really effectively, like in that scene we were just talking about there. And this movie kind of belongs, I think, there's this like sub genre of movies like the Full Monty and Fisherman's Friends, these feel good Brit movies that where ordinary people overcome extraordinary obstacles and that kind of thing. And this isn't a British film, but the Brits are particularly good at making those movies, and this one fits on the same shelf. It's good to sit next to it. And when I first saw it, liked it. It was not one that I reviewed. I watched it for pleasure. I liked it. I underestimated it, I think, and I think I probably underestimated its appeal, because here we are, on March 23rd, sitting here a few days away from the Academy Awards, and saying that probably this little film that premiered at Sundance is very likely going to win the Best Oscar award, which is really something. From very humble beginnings, here we are.
Okay. So we're going to turn to our last film. Anne, aren't you impressed? I've done all 10.
Amazing. This is incredible. I am impressed.
Okay, thank you. So we're going to look now at Belfast. Let's watch the trailer for Belfast.
We all have a story to tell. But what makes each one different is not how the story ends, but rather the place where it begins. God.
Mama says if we went across the water, we wouldn't understand the way we talk.
If they can't understand you, then they're not listening. You know who you are, don't you? Your buddy from Belfast, where everybody knows you.
Hey, buddy! Your mom's calling you, yes!
We're looking to cleanse the community a wee bit.
You wouldn't want to be the old man out in the street. Touch my family and I'll kill you.
So we're gonna have to leave Belfast.
We'll fight this together.
This is it? This is what?
This is war.
We're living in a civil war. We're strong. They want my family with me. They want you. Kids the same age as ours are getting killed. We can give these boys a better chance than we ever had.
Nothing else but Belfast.
Go now. Don't look back.
Richard, first word to you on this film, Belfast.
I loved this movie. I loved it sitting in the theater watching it at the Toronto International Film Festival this year. I loved the performances. Jamie Dornan, much like Kristen Stewart and Robert Pattinson that I was talking about earlier, made 3 career-ending films in a row, which there didn't seem to be any escape from. The 50 Shades of Grey movies, big hits, but I didn't think that he would move on very far after that. And then he turns around and hands in this really warm, wonderful performance that kind of grounds this entire thing. Jude Hill, his little buddy, the little boy, is just absolutely winning. And I loved, that this movie is, and I said this earlier, it's not a political film. It's set in a very political time, a very divided time, but it's really about a coming of age of this young boy trying to figure out what's going on in the world and why are things changing so quickly around me. And I loved that they go to the movies. And when they go to the movies and they see Chitty Chitty Bang Bang and other things, the scenes are not only beautiful to look at, it's an old school movie theater and it's shot so beautifully, but I just loved that it shows us the importance of art in troubled times and how important it is to go to the movies to escape whatever's happening in the real world for just a little while and enjoy. And that's what they do in this film. And I enjoyed the heck out of Belfast.
Yeah. Just before I turn to you, Anne, the thing that I found, and you know, from the perspective of someone immersed in the world of social justice, is to me, the one line that resonated the most was when the son turns to his father and says, you know, this girl that I have this affection for and I want to marry one day, she's a Catholic and I'm a Protestant. And is that going to be a problem, Daddy? And he says, no. And he explains why. And I thought that was such a poignant moment. So to me, it wasn't political, but there was, it resonated with the message of social justice. And that was very important. What did you think about the film, man?
I loved it too. And I had the opportunity, I saw it. I didn't get to go to TIFF this year, but it came to our little festival in Virginia, Middleburg, and Kenneth Branagh was there, and I got to do a Q&A with him. And I've done subsequent Q&As with him. And what's fascinating to me about this movie is that it was conceived and executed during COVID. And and so many films that have come out of this period do have this reflective quality to them. And because I think that downtime gave artists like Kenneth Branagh a chance just to kind of sit with their memories and let memories bubble up. And you need the time and the space and the silence to let that happen. And much of this really is autobiographical. You know, I mean, so many of these scenes, and those scenes in the theater very much are. And Chitty Chitty Bang Bang was the movie that changed his life. And it just captures that wonderment and that sort of besottedness. You know, it reminded me, and I know this was a divisive movie, but Jojo Rabbit was about the moral development of a child. It was about the moral education of a child within unspeakable circumstances. And this was that to me too, you know, because he's trying to get this girlfriend and he's trying to figure out what side he's on, if he's even on a side. And he's trying to figure out if the family should leave. I mean, he's dealing, you know, he's trying to figure out, should he steal from the store or not? I mean, these are kind of weighty issues that this little 9-year-old boy is having to kind of work his way through in the midst of this upheaval. And I just thought Ken Branagh, you know, he's such a fine writer and filmmaker. He's probably our best Shakespearean interpreter, Joel Cohen notwithstanding, and it all kind of serves him in this. You know, it's got these soaring, beautiful monologues and soliloquies. It's just exquisite. It's really beautiful.
Does the movie have a chance to win Best Picture, both of you, Richard and Ann?
Listen, I really think it's Coda's to lose at this point. You know, I would be extremely happy if Belfast won. But I think Coda, you know, as we were saying earlier, I underestimated this movie. And it was a little film that I liked. I was touched by when I watched it. It didn't take up a great deal of space in the old thinking box afterwards, though. You know, I moved on and I didn't think about it for some time. And then it just started to pop up during awards season. And all of a sudden, everyone's talking about it now. And I get it, because, you know, what we've all just collectively come through on the other end of that, now we want something that's going to make us feel better. And I don't think The Power of the Dog is that. I think Coda is that. And I think that will resonate with Academy voters.
Yeah. Richard, can I boycott the Academy Awards if Power of Dog beats Coda?
Well, it'd be too late. You'll have to boycott them next year. And then who knows, your favorite film of all time might come out this year. And then what do you do then?
And Belfast, can it win?
I'm with Richard on this one. I do think Coda, and let's remember the little movie that could, yes, except it was also purchased by Apple, a little company that could called Apple for a record-setting $25 million. Their eyes were very much on Oscar when they did that. You know, they wouldn't have spent that money if they didn't see this as their Oscar movie, and they have campaigned brilliantly for it, because it hasn't been over the top. I mean, Netflix wants this so bad that you can see them sweat, and you never saw Apple sweat through this.
Everybody wants to be the first streamer to win Best Picture, and Apple, I think, is going to beat Netflix to it, even though Netflix has pulled out all the stops year after year after year in an attempt to get.
Happy.
They're not going to be happy. And Apple's, relatively new to the features game here, and they're going to do it with this weird little movie that everyone underestimated at first.
Just before we end, I want to wrap up with a personal question that I know won't bother you. I wanted to know how Film Critic watches the Oscars. Do you just sit in your living room, or do you go with notes to some theater? How do Anne and Richard watch the Academy Awards?
I watch them at home.
Okay.
Pre-COVID, we would all go to the newsroom, the entire team. It's we flood the zone for that night.
I see.
We have every pop culture writer and every editor on the case. So we would gather in the post newsroom, and I would watch them on TV in the post newsroom and then write up my analysis right away. This year, we're doing it a little bit differently. Many of us will be gathering in the newsroom. I'll be at home. I'll be blogging throughout the night a little bit, and then I'll write my analysis up the next day. So I'm I'm kind of on point. I'm taking notes, and I'm always thinking, like, what am I possibly going to say about this? So it's always very nerve wracking. I always say I work for free all year. I get paid on Oscar night.
Okay. That's right. Absolutely. Oscar, typically speaking, pre-pandemic, I always hosted a big party here at the Drake Hotel in Toronto. We'd get 300 or 400 people, and people come in gowns and this whole thing. And the television station that I worked for would send a camera beforehand, and I'd set everything up, and then they'd have a camera there afterwards. So the party is still going on in the background. I'd do live hits for the news, get home very late, up the next morning, talking about it again. This year, I'm staying home. There will be the television will remain the same. I'll do it before and after, but they'll come here. I'm staying home. I'm watching it, and then in the morning, I'm up at like 5:30 a.m. and
we needed to have that personal touch, So I wanted to tell our audience that I've already informally invited Anne and Richard. I'm going to do it more formally, but we consider you a member of our synagogue family. This is our second year doing the program. We love you. And so we're going to invite you next year to do it in the synagogue, live stream it. And,
that would be amazing.
And we're going to be technically perfect. Perfect. And but this was so interesting, enlightening. It gives all of our viewers, first of all, an insight to watch the Academy Awards now with a lot of information, but also an idea of which movies they may or may not want to see. And so, thank you very much, Anne and Richard.
Thank you.
And it was an hour shorter than Don't Look Up.
Yes, it was. I was
2 hours shorter than Drive My Car.
Yes, but I did it. I finished on time. So, and I want to remind our audience that we have 22 minutes now of upbeat, lively music. So go get your drinks, your popcorn, your beer, your wine, your juice, and enjoy George Benson and Stevie Wonder. Thank you all. Thank you to my distinguished guests, Anne.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Richard.
Thanks, Anne. I'll see you next year.
You bet. Bye.
Bye. Good night, everyone.